So here we go. We're going to read chapter 1 of Shepherd's Quest, book 1 of the Broken Key Trilogy. I wrote this one right after I finished the Morsai Saga. And I mean, I finished Mist of Sorrows, and I think I waited as soon as I got it published or ready for publication. I just started in on it. And I did. I wrote this thing in 5 weeks. I just couldn't stop writing. After that, I slowed way down, and then my life tanked, and I got out of writing for a while. But I'm back. I'm getting more energized towards it every day, it seems like. Yesterday, I just edited it all the time, the whole day. I got, if you've been following me for a while, you know I've just read the Unsuspecting Mage, and I was editing it, and I got a lot of edits fixed, and I'll have that. I'll start uploading that to both Smashwords and Kindle after I'm done with this read here and get this one uploaded. So here we go, chapter 1 of Shepherd's Quest. Riyan looked out over the landscape. His position on the ridge afforded him a commanding view of the valley. The moonlight overhead painted the world in shadows, among which who knew what sorts of beasts may lie. Undaunted, he turned to his companion and directed his attention to the castle nestled in against the backdrop of the far side of the valley. "Look," he said. His companion, a man like himself who had seen many a battle, nodded. "We'll find her in there for sure." The lady in question had been snatched from her home by persons unknown. Her family contracted Riyan and Chadric to track down those responsible, rescue their daughter, and slay her captors. After several days of following their trail, it had led them here. Yes, I want to make some updates here now and then. Also, there's gonna be spoilers ahead, so if you're not aware of that, there could be spoilers ahead. Let me say that. "Let's go," Riyan said, and then headed out. Chadric followed close behind. They worked their way down the ridge and soon found themselves in the shadowy darkness of the valley floor. Heavily forested, this area gave off a less than comforting feel as they made their way closer to the castle. From out of the darkness, a wolf's howl split the night. Riyan and Chadric came to an abrupt stop as they turned their attention toward the direction from which the sound had originated. The moon's light did little to dispel the shadows, as it was unable to effectively reach this far below the forest canopy. "What?" began Chadric when Riyan held up his hand to silence him. "Oh, no. What?" began Chadric, when Riyan... Yeah, I don't like that. "What?" began Chadric. Period. New paragraph. Riyan held up his hand to silence him, becoming silent once more. Chadric focused attention on the shadowy boles of the trees before them. Then all of a sudden, one of the mountain wolves that infested these parts launched itself out of the shadows. Moving straight for Chadric, it snarled and its teeth became pale shadows in the darkness. Riyan pulled his sword from its scabbard just as his companion was bowled over by the beast. "Chadric!" he hollered. On the ground, the wolf had one of Chadric's gauntleted forearms in his mouth and was shaking it furiously. "Ah!" he cried out. With his other fist, Chadric began hitting the beast alongside the head, but the blows did little in persuading it to release his arm. Then Riyan came to his aid. Striking out the back of the wolf with his sword, he cleaved the beast almost in two by his thunderous blow. Kicking out with his foot, he knocked the wolf from off his friend. "Are you okay?" he asked. Offering a hand, he helped his friend to his feet. Chadric nodded. Then he took a look at the gauntlet covering his forearm and saw where the wolf's teeth had indented the metal. "Yeah," he replied. "We better hurry and reach the castle," Riyan said. "Wolves never hunt alone." No sooner had he said that... New paragraph. No sooner had he said that than another howl split the night not very far away. Wiping his sword off the wolf's hide, he gave Chadric a hand up, and then they were back on their way to the castle. They passed among the trees much more quickly now, the howling of the wolves driving them onward. Despite the frequency and close proximity of the howls, no other wolf made an appearance. At last, they reached the far side of the valley. There the forest became less dense, and it wasn't long before the outer wall of the castle appeared through the trees. High on the upward slope of the valley, where the mountains began, its dark edifice loomed hauntingly. The wall ringing the castle rose high from the valley's floor, beyond which climbed a spire even higher into the sky. A single light broke the darkness as it escaped from a window high in its upper reaches. When they reached the edge of the forest across from the wall, they paused for a moment. Something's not right, observed Chadric. I know, agreed Riyan. The paragraph. No guards were present upon the battlements, and the gate stood open. It can't be this easy. Could be they didn't expect anyone to have trailed them back here, suggested Chadric. You may be right, but deep down, Riyan didn't think so. Come on, he said. Moving quickly and quietly, he raced toward the open gate. Other than the normal sounds one would expect while in the forest, nothing else could be heard. Upon reaching the gate, they pressed themselves against the wall and peered through its gaping maw. The inner courtyard looked clear. The inner courtyard looked clear. A courtyard stretched. I don't need courtyard. Yeah. The inner courtyard looked clear. It stretched 40 yards from where they stood at the door leading to the castle. Like I always say, I don't like redundancy and repetitiveness. If I can avoid using the same word twice in close proximity to each other, I'll do it every time. It stretched 40 yards from where they stood to the door leading to the castle. The tower with the light was but one of three that extended upward from the main body of the castle. Two shorter ones extended upward at either end, while the one with the lit window towered to twice their height out of the castle's central keep. Riyan raised his hand, which bore the ring of evil detection. Calling upon his power, it took but a moment before a glow began surrounding a 3-foot statue that stood on a short column situated between them and the door leading into the castle. Exactly what the statue was couldn't be readily determined in the moonlight from this distance. I thought so, stated Riyan. He glanced back to see if Chadric had seen the glow. Nodding that he had, Chadric asked, now what? I'm all out of protection scrolls, he replied. The ring will afford me some protection against whatever it is. He glanced back to the statue and drew his sword. Stay here. When he heard Chadric say, all right, he moved into the courtyard. Working his way around the statue, he kept one eye on it and another on the rest of the courtyard. As he came closer, he could tell the statue was of some demonic beast. There were wings on its back, and a single spiraling horn protruded from out of its forehead. The head had a cruel visage with what looked like 2 razor-sharp fangs extending upward from out of its lower jaw. Then all of a sudden, he felt a vibration in the ring, one he always felt when evil was near. The eyes of the statue flashed a dark red, and the head slowly turned toward him. As the statue came to life, he now understood why there were no guards on the walls or in the courtyard. This was the castle's guardian. Coming out of its sitting position, the demonic creature stretched upright and raised its head. Then it gave out with an ear-piercing screech. Growing silent, the creature launched itself off the column and toward Riyan. With a war cry of his own, Riyan raised his shield to ward off the creature's attack. Bringing his sword into position, he waited. Beating its wings, the creature flew through the air and struck out at Riyan with the claws of his feet. Riyan raised his shield and felt the creature strike it with jarring impact. Then he retaliated with his sword, striking out with a resounding blow. Yeah, I had striking out at the creature, but I'm going to take out at the creature. Because the assumption has to be that he's striking at the creature, so I say it. The blade of his sword rebounded off the creature, doing little... Rebounded. No, I don't need off the creature. Doing little more than chipping away a small piece of the marble it was constructed of. The jarring impact of the sword on the marble left Riyan's arm tingling. With wings flapping, it rose into the air, only to turn and strike once more. By this time, Chadric had reached his friend's side and used his mace. He smashed the creature as its attack was thwarted again by Riyan's shield. The mace did more damage, being a smashing weapon such as it was. But it still did not do enough to stop the creature. As it made ready for another attack, Chadric came up with an idea. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a small crystal vial. Then as the creature again moved to attack Riyan, he threw it. When the vial struck, it shattered upon the hard marble surface, and the fluid it contained burned the creature. Shrieking, the creature fell to the ground and started thrashing about as dark smoke wafted from where the liquid had touched it. Chadric and Riyan moved forward quickly and laid into it with sword and mace. They soon had it reduced to a pile of broken marble. When at last its movements stopped completely, Riyan stepped back and looked to his friend. "What was in that?" he asked. "Holy water," Chadric replied. "Got it before we left Rinwall." Ryan nodded and grinned at his friend. That was fortunate. Turned out that way, agreed Chadric. Leaving the creature's shattered remains behind, they ran toward the door leading into the castle. Ryan flung it wide and strode fearlessly inside. Yeah, see, in the previous sentence, I ended it with into the castle, and this time I ended this sentence, the following sentence, with into the castle. So I'm going to change the second into the castle to inside. So it now reads, Ryan flung it wide and strode fearlessly inside. Dark and ominous, the interior was full of shadows as the moonlight made its way in through the many windows. Now, I really think that having done this for 19 years now, I'm getting a more practiced eye at how, at creating a better flow, creating, it just sounds better and not so much repetitiveness. Hopefully, anyway. The hall they now found themselves in had the appearance of having been left unattended for some time. Cloth covered many of the pieces of furniture. Spider webs hung in the corners of the room. All in all, the place gave the feeling that no one had been there for some time. If that was the case, then why did the trail of the woman's captors lead here? And what can it mean that a light shone from the window at the top of the tower? Ryan glanced around the hall for a brief moment before crossing over to a stairway leading up. Taking the steps quickly, he and Chadric ascended to the landing on the second floor. We have to find the entrance to the tower, Ryan said. Chadric moved down to a hallway that headed in the general direction of the tower. Could be down here, he suggested. He saw that it extended farther into the castle. Ryan nodded and then moved to join him at the hallway. Taking the lead, he left the landing and headed quickly down the hallway with Chadric right behind. The hallway itself was rather wide, with several doors lining both sides. Moving past them, Ryan walked quickly toward the end of the hallway, where he hoped to find the entrance to the tower. When he reached a little over halfway to the door at the end, his ring began vibrating to tell him evil was close. He no sooner paused and was about to tell Chadric to be on his guard than the doors lining the hallway opened. From out of them emerged skeletons bearing swords and shields. They rushed forward to attack. Immediately, Ryan and Chadric formed up back to back and faced the onslaught. Easily a dozen skeletons boiled from the adjacent rooms. Striking out, Ryan's sword removed the head from one, only to see his body continue the attack. We have to go for the arms, he hollered to his friend. His next swing severed the sword arm of the headless skeleton. New paragraph. Kicking out with his boot, he knocked the one-armed, headless stack of bones backward. It broke apart when it struck the wall. Yeah, Chadric yelled as his mace smashed through the ribcage of another. Laying about them, they quickly destroyed the skeletons. Having only received a few minor cuts, they left the pile of bones behind and hurried to the door at the end of the hallway. So far, what they faced hadn't been all that challenging. Upon reaching the door, Ryan grabbed the handle and pushed it open. On the other side, they found a room where a staircase led up into the tower. A roar filled the room as a fur-covered creature leapt from... For some reason, I have a hyphen between covered and creature. It should be, if anything, it should be between fur and covered. Sorry. Leapt up from the stairs. Taller than either of them, it must have stood over 6.5 feet. Naked, other than the covering of fur, its only weapons appeared to be a pair of nasty-looking claws and the razor-sharp teeth filling its mouth. Shouting his war cry, Ryan raced forward with sword drawn to meet the attack. He raised his shield as one of the creature's massive paws struck. The force of the blow upon his shield knocked him backward several steps. As he saw Chadric moving past him to engage, he yelled, "It's stronger than it looks!" Chadric nodded, then attacked with his mace. Impacting the creature's side, the hit elicited a roar of pain. Then another of the creature's paws swung forward. Chadric raised his shield to block the blow and sailed backward through the air when the blow connected. Slamming into the wall, he slid down and settled to the floor. "Yeah!" screamed Ryan as he thrust his sword toward the creature. The sword's point struck the creature's side and sank in several inches. The creature tilted its head back and howled at the pain Ryan's sword inflicted. Then the creature struck the sword with one of its paws and knocked it from Ryan's grasp. As the sword flew across the room, the creature struck Ryan with its other paw and sent him sailing. He hit the wall with an oof and settled to the floor. From across the room, Chadric was getting back to his feet. He saw the creature moving toward where Riyan was lying. No, not was lying. How about laid? Was laid on the ground. Yeah, I like laid. On the ground and hollered, "Hey, you!" When the creature turned, he threw his mace and smashed the creature right between the eyes. The force of the blow was such that it caved in the creature's skull, smashing the brains within. Falling backward, it hit the floor and twitched for a few seconds before becoming still. Chadric rushed to his friend's side and asked, "Are you okay?" Riyan opened his eyes and nodded. "I think so." Glancing over to where the creature laid, sorry. Sometimes I have a hard time finding the right key. The letters on my laptop, they're kind of worn off, so half of them I can't tell what they are. I need to get stickers or something. Glancing over to where the creature laid, he said, "Hope there aren't any more like that one." Offering his friend a hand up, Chadric helped him to his feet. Then he went over to the dead creature and recovered his mace. "Hey, would you look at this?" Turning around, he saw Riyan standing before a closed chest sitting against the wall. "Wonder what's in it." Riyan shrugs, then turned back to face the chest. "Only one way to find out," he said. Grabbing hold of the lid, he lifted it up. Now, right there, you would think that he would check for traps or something like that. Any role player seeing that with them, like, he's dead. Or he's going to be seriously bothered. But no, apparently not. Chadric crossed the room and stood beside him as he swung the lid all the way up. Inside, the gleam of coins and gems could be seen. "Must be a fortune," he exclaimed excitedly. They both reached in and started removing the coins and gems. A few gold coins mixed in with a handful of silver, while the majority were copper. Yeah, I don't need the majority of coins that were copper, just the majority were copper. They filled their pouches with the treasure, and in so doing, discovered a secret compartment hidden in the bottom of the chest. Riyan took out his knife and pried it open. Within they found a plain brass key. He held it up and said, "This could be useful." "Better take it with us," agreed Chadric. Putting it within his belt pouch, Riyan then turned and headed toward the stairs leading up. The steps rose as they wound their way around the outer wall of the tower in a spiraling fashion until finally disappearing through the ceiling. With Chadric following closely, Riyan moved onto the stairs and quickly began moving to the next level. "Wait a second," Chadric said as he pulled one of his torches out of his pack. Once he had it lit, he indicated for Riyan to continue. For a brief moment, the stairs passed through a narrow section as it went from the first level to the second. Then it opened up again as it reached the second floor landing. There they found boxes and crates stacked neatly in various spots. As it turned out, the tower itself wasn't very wide, and the light from Chadric's torch was able to reveal it in its entirety. With nothing other than boxes and crates, they continued following the stair as it wound its way along the outside wall up to the third floor. Just as it had between the first and second, the stair entered a narrow area when it passed from the second floor to the third. When Riyan entered the narrow area between floors, his ring vibrated. He paused a moment as he informed Chadric that something was ahead, then took the torch from him as he resumed his forward progress. Now, with the torch held before him, Riyan stepped cautiously as he neared where the stairs opened up onto the third floor. First the torch, then his head cleared the opening as he slowly crept his way forward. The light from the torch cast shadows in the room as he completely emerged from the opening. The room, as it turned out, looked to be someone's bedroom. A bed, dresser, and table all gave this room a rather homey appearance. Another chest similar in nature to the one found below. Yeah, the one they found below. I can take out they and just leave it. The one found below sat at the foot of the bed. Riyan moved forward into the room toward it as Chadric began to emerge from the opening leading to the second floor. "Be careful," he warned when he saw what Riyan was moving toward. Riyan came to a stop before the chest and placed his hand upon the latch. Gripping it tightly, he pulled the lid open. Inside, he found another pile of coins. Nestled in among the coins were two bottles that were normally used in conjunction with potions. He moved his torch closer and saw that both bottles contained liquid. He reached in and took one of the potion bottles out. He reached in. How about he reached in and removed one of the potion bottles? Yeah, I like that idea. He removed one of the potion bottles. I think that flows better. Hey, look what I found. Always excited when finding potions, Riyan turned back to Chadric. Wonder what they do. You know, when I first started playing Dungeons & Dragons, potions were very rare and stuff like that. But you know, like in Skyrim, you can't swing a dead cat without finding a potion. They're very common in Skyrim, which is kind of surprising because you wouldn't think that there'd be that much. Yeah. Anyway, I like my Skyrim potions though. Chadric moved closer to the chest and reached inside to pull out the other one. Inspecting it carefully, he saw a feather inscribed upon a wax seal. Maybe this is a flying potion, he guessed. Possibly, stated Riyan. Mine has the sign of the healer. A healing potion, nodded Chadric happily. Can always use one of those. You got that right, replied Riyan. They then removed their packs and set them on the floor. Once the potions were secured within, along with the coins from the chest, they slung them again across their backs. There can't be too many more floors remaining to this tower, observed Chadric. I know, replied Riyan. You need to be extra careful from this point on. My ring indicated evil was present, but there's nothing here. If what it senses on the next floor, said Chad, it must be powerful indeed. Riyan just nodded. The two friends then went to the stair and began climbing up to the 4th floor. Before they reached the narrow area between floors, they saw light coming from above. Better put that out, Chadric told Riyan as he indicated the torch. Good thinking, he replied. Putting the burning end against the step, he rolled it until the flame went out. Leaving it smoldering on the step, Riyan looked up at the light coming from the 4th floor. Removing his sword from his scabbard, he resumed moving into the narrow area between the 3rd and 4th floor. His ring vibrated once more. When he came to the end of the narrow area, he slowed down and continued until he was just able to gaze into the 4th floor. Come in, gentlemen, said a voice. On the far side of the room sat a man hunched over a desk with his back to them. Over the desk were 2 shelves lined with books. Sitting at the right end of the lower shelf was a gilded cage containing a small creature. Upon closer examination, it was revealed that the creature within the cage was almost an exact duplicate to that of the statue creature they destroyed down the courtyard below. Riyan exited the narrow passage and entered the room. We've come for the girl, he said. I know, the man replied. Turning around, the man looked to where Riyan stood with sword drawn. But she's mine. He then glanced toward Chadric as he emerged from the narrow passage behind Riyan. Grinning, he said, and now, so are you. I think we'll be a bit more difficult to deal with than a girl, countered Riyan. The man scooted his chair back and stood. Turning to face the pair, they saw that he was dressed in a robe of some sort. Could possibly be a magic user of some kind. Moving his hands in arcane gestures, the man began speaking words neither of them could understand. Realizing he was casting a spell, Chadric threw his mace in an attempt to disrupt the magic user's concentration. Unfortunately, the man finished the spell in time and bolts of reddish energy lanced from his fingertips, striking both Riyan and Chadric. The man then easily dodged aside to avoid the mace. When the bolt struck, it felt like fire. Indeed, where one bolt had struck Ryan's ringmail armor, the rings in that area were slightly melted. Giving out with a cry, Riyan charged the man as another round of fiery bolts left his fingers. This time, the bolts were directed slowly at Riyan. His shield bore the brunt of the attack, though 2 made it through and knocked him back a step. Then the magic user began chanting another series of magical words, and a shadow formed between him. Roughly man-shaped, it began moving toward them. Get the magic user, yelled Riyan as a sword lashed out at the oncoming shadow. His sword seemed to have minimal effect as it passed right through. As the magic user began another chant, Chadric drew his knife and rushed him. He made it to within a couple feet before the man finished the spell and a green glob formed before him. Unable to stop, Chadric ran right into the acidic green glob. Pain flared as the green substance began eating his flesh away. Riyan, he cried out as his momentum carried him forward into the magic user. Then the magic user exclaimed in pain. Chadric gripped him in a death grip. The green substance that covered Chadric was now beginning to eat away at the magic user. With his concentration now broken from the pain of the green goo, the shadow that was moving on Riyan disappeared. Riyan ran forward to where Chadric gripped the magic user, only to find both men were beyond his help. Most of the exposed skin of Chadric's body had melted away to expose the bones underneath. The screams of the magic user continued to ring out as the green goo ate his flesh away. Riyan knelt down by the side of his lifelong friend. He could see that he was still alive and in great pain. Chadric's eyes looked up at him beseechingly, and he knew what he was asking. With tears in his eyes, he took his sword and plunged it into the chest of his best friend to end his suffering. The magic user's suffering he allowed to continue until the end came. When he pulled the sword free from Chadric's body, he found the blade pitted by its brief contact with the goo covering Chadric. No longer serviceable, he cast it aside. He collapsed on the floor for some time, grief over his friend's death heavy upon him. But then he remembered why they had come, the woman. "Bye, Chad," he said, then moved to the stairs and hurried to the top. The stairs ended at a locked door with a small window set into it. Going to the window, he put his mouth near it and said, "Hello?" "Go away!" A woman's voice yelled at him from the other side. "Lady," replied Riyan, "I've come to rescue you. Your father sent me." Then he saw the face of a most beautiful woman appear in the window. "My father?" she asked. "That's right," he said. He tried to open the door, only to find it to be locked. Remembering the key discovered in the chest on the ground floor, he took it out of his pouch and placed it in the keyhole. Turning it, he nodded satisfactorily when the lock turned. Then he opened the door wide and stepped within the room. Barely dressed in anything and looking all the more sexy because of it, the woman rushed forward and clasped her arms around him. "Thank you, gallant knight," she said. Then reaching her lips up to his, she gave him a most passionate kiss. Her breasts were rubbing into his chest, and... "Wait a second right now," Chadric demanded. "What?" asked Riyan. "Here you have me dead on the floor below," he stated with dissatisfaction, "my skin eaten away by accident, and you're about to get it on with the woman." "So?" his friend said with a grin. "It's just a story." "I know it's just a story," Chadric remarked, "but I always seem to be the one to die." The two friends sat upon a hillock under a bright, sunny summer day. Down the hill a ways gazed the flock of sheep that Riyan was supposed to be keeping an eye on. "You're one to talk," replied Riyan. "Don't you remember the time before last when you were telling the tale?" When he saw his friend get a grin on his face, he knew that he had. "You had me lying on a torture rack with an arm and a leg missing, hot lead being poured into my eye socket, and where were you? Off having a little fling with the daughter of the man who was torturing me." Okay, he said. Then they both broke into laughter. Okay, so when I started this book, I wanted an exciting opening, to grab people. And I admit it's a little over the top. And I have some qualms with it, with the opening scene of this series. Nothing major, but little things. See, I like things to be logical. When I created dungeons, I created them for the people who would enter them, not really thinking about the logic behind it of the people who actually created it, So like in here, like in this one. Okay, she's locked in the tower. Now, they find the key to that tower in a chest under a pile in a secret compartment under gems, on the lower floor. Realistically speaking, that's stupid, because that magic user never would have had that key in there, because he would need to get into that room to feed her, let her out for the bathroom, interrogate her, whatever. So why would he have that key in that chest? There's just no logical reason for it. I mean, it's nice for the story and everything, and but if you think on it from the magic user's point of view, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for that key to be in that chest. Because then you have to go all the way down those floors, dig all those coins out, because once you open the secret compartment, the coins are in there, they're going to flood into it and make closing it impossible. So every time he wants that key, he's got to pull the coins out, open the secret compartment, use the key, come back, return the key, close the compartment, then put the coins back in there. And for a powerful magic user, I think that would just be too much effort. I know James would never do that. James would never do that. And if you don't know who James is, read The Unsuspecting Mage. Download it for free, and you'll know. So anyway, this was a little over the top, and I wonder if some people, read that and think, "Oh, great, there's going to be another one of these kind of stories." When, near the end of the chapter, it changes. The whole thing changes. Now, from this point on, I try to be logical in everything I do. I try to have a reason for everything and not just have it there for people to discover. I wanted this to be logical. Maybe I lost a lot of people with that. I don't know. Because I get a lot of people who download this book but don't go to the next two. Don't know, not sure why, but maybe that's the reason. They're looking for a grand old over-the-top adventure, and this really isn't. It's just about, it's just about 3 friends and then ultimately 4 who go on a treasure hunt. That's basically all it is. It's just a big treasure hunt. And I wanted to write one that was really true to Dungeons and Dragons style, scrolls, magic rings, stuff like that. All right, let's get back to it. This was their favorite pastime. This was one of their favorite pastimes. On the days Chad could get away from his father's mill, he was usually to be found with Riyan as he minded the flock. They would spend hours telling each other stories of adventures they wished they could have. Being stuck in a small town such as Quillim, all their lives had allowed little chance for such experiences. For Riyan, whose family was poor shepherds and barely made a living from their sheep, and Chad, who detested being a miller's son, life in this border town was dull and uneventful. The only time adventure came their way was when one of Riyan's sheep managed to wander away and they had to go track it down, which was more often than not. Bah! Ugh, not again, Chad moaned, as Riyan got up and began scanning the area. Looks like Blackface got stuck in the thicket again, Riyan told his friend. Isn't that the 3rd time this week? Asked Chad. Nodding, Riyan began making his way down the hill as he replied, something like that. Give me a hand. Shaking his head, Chad pushed himself off the ground and went to help his friend. Can't wait until shearing time, he said. You got that right, agreed Riyan. It's his wool. It keeps getting snared by the thorns. Sure enough, they found Blackface trapped within the thicket. Sometimes he wished that he could just leave him there for a day or 2 to teach him a lesson, but his mother would skin him alive if he did. So, working very carefully, he and Chad spent the next half hour working the thorns from out of Blackface's coat. And that ends chapter 1. So, this adventure here is just going to be a fun adventure. And there's not really too much to talk about at the moment. And as we get into other things, I'll expand upon that. I appreciate y'all following along with me. And do I ramble too much? My girlfriend thinks I ramble way too much in these things. But I just talk, I just say what I think I need to say. And I suppose I do ramble a little bit, but that's all right. But if you think I ramble too much, I'll try to tighten it up. So if you haven't already, like this, comment. Comments are always welcome. I'll respond to every comment. And subscribe to my channel to help it grow if you haven't already. I would appreciate that. And then, now tonight I'm heading to my girlfriend's. So depending on how that goes, chapter 2 may be done tomorrow, but it probably won't be done early in the morning tomorrow. It'll be delayed, so don't expect it first thing in the morning. And then I'll be back at the house here Tuesday, and I won't get back on my regular early morning schedule like I am right now until Wednesday morning. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to do my best to get them out, but I may not be able to. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, y'all have a good weekend, and I'll see you when I see you, I guess.